Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the League of Inches podcast. Huge episode, the grand final preview podcast. It was advertised. I know a lot of you are out there waiting very, very much for this one. We say thank you. It's obviously been a huge week, grand final wise, a lot of podcast, a lot of content to get out there. And then Dally M's obviously Wednesday night hurt us as well, because that's obviously a big night for us doing some podcasts. But here we are, going to get straight into it. Got Trav along for this ride again. Huge game coming up. For mine, the two best teams of the competition and have been basically all year, the standouts. They made on the big stage and made the big dance, and I am looking forward to this one. It's going to be an absolute cracker. Trav, straight away, I ask you, is there anything that pops out to you? Is there any sort of questions that you want to raise early from your point about this game and what you can see?
Yeah, once the results came through with the Panthers win on Saturday, I sort of started to think about gameplay and what's going to happen between these two, and it's pretty sort of easy to think about when they've played each other so much in big games over the last 5 years. But what a credit to both of these clubs, particularly the dominance of what Panthers been doing, and the fact that my Storm, I'm a Storm fan, but my Storm have been able to continue to keep doing this and be thereabouts for so long. Such a credit to them. So it's quite easy to talk about the way they play, but it's also, I think, quite easy to compare and talk about the way they play, because they are so similar, but they've just got it down to a T. Like, we know what they're going to do, and they do it week in and week out, and people can't stop them. And so it's going to be so I've got a few questions. The first question I do have, though, came out a couple of days ago when they announced the ref. And so I wanted to sort of bring up with you the announcement of the ref and what you think with the Ashley Klein. Well, first of all, do you think he's the best ref in the game? Because I don't. But do you think he's the best ref in the game? And then I've got a few points, but I think we should probably start there and talk about, the play of the ref in this competition, in this grand final.
You spoke about it. It's a huge game, not just for these teams, but for the referee, and that's Ashley Klein on this occasion. And the reason I say that, because I wind back the clock straight away to last year, and we go on about how good that grand final was, and a lot of it came down to the refereeing performance. He let a lot go, and in a way, it was a very fast-flowing game of footy. The difference this year is, and you've sort of alluded to it already, is that he's got to be in charge of two teams that, let's call a spade, are very good in the ruck. They're very good at getting things down to their tempo, and the referee's going to have to make a big decision. Does he go to the whistle in the pocket treatment, or does he set the rules in early so that we then get the fast-flowing game of football that everyone loved last year? And that's going to mean there's going to be a number of penalties and six agains early in this game, and people might not like that, but it might establish the referee's dominance over the game, and to say, you know what, I'm not going to let you get away with what you think you're going to get away with, and referee it that way. Now, that could ruin the spectacle. I'm not too sure. Is Ashley Klein the best referee? I don't think so. I've been a huge fan of Adam G since last year's grand final, and I don't know why he was discarded basically for this final series. We haven't seen him for almost a month now. It's ridiculous, in my opinion. There's clearly politics being played out here, and there was a number of calls throughout the year that Ashley Klein just clearly got wrong, and I am so shocked he's in this position. I don't know what's happening, but I just hope he doesn't get any howlers done. He doesn't make any crucial calls that will affect this game that should be decided by the two best teams.
Yeah, all really good points, man. And I agree totally. I think surely over this last few days and leading up to the grand final, there's some big conversations with him about consistency, about how to referee and officiate this game, and how to walk in there and officiate it by what the letter of the law are. But surely there's a bit of a tape watching over the year, and a reminder, because it's not uncommon and unknown to the officiators and to even the league about the way that these two teams play and what they do. And the community whinges about it. But, at the end of the day, it's, we can talk about, they break the rules and blah, 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 blah. And, they're cheaters and they're both cheaters because of the way they play in the ruck and the way they grind you down and what they do and all of those bits and pieces. But it's not called that because it's obviously part of the law, the way that and the way it's officiated. So, however, we've then come to these finals games, and as of week 1, that was started to be called. And Ashley Klein was atrocious in that first. And you and I sat here in a review show, talked about how bad that was. And then you spoke about the Cowboys game. And then it immediately changed. And so the next 2 weeks, Ashley Klein pretty much put his whistle away and was a whole different game. He needs to do the same thing. But the problem I've got is we don't know whether Ashley Klein's going to do that. So how can we say that he's their best ref? So I've got an issue with that. The issue I've got is that, both teams, they thrive on that possession, don't they? They thrive on owning the possession. They thrive on grinding down you in defense, grinding you into the ground and grinding you back to your line, right? So that's what they thrive off. They grind you and grind you and grind you until you stuff up, until you make that error. And Penrith showed that on the weekend against the Sharks. Like, it was so competitive, but they grinded them down until, weather stuffed them around a little bit too, because it was wet. But the pressure that Penrith put them under, to then the Sharks made a couple of really crucial errors and Penrith just thrived off that. And the same thing happened against the Roosters for the Storm. The Storm were just so offensively dominant, but they also grinded them down and grinded you out and made you make those mistakes to get the field possession, right? Penrith also have the benefit of having Cleary, who can literally kick the ball on a dime. And that's the pressure that they put under it. They want to defend their defensive line, and it's hard enough to defend against these teams and defend your line as it is, let alone have Klein take control of that and be useless. And if that's the problem, and he continues, and I've got an issue with the fact that I'm even asking this question, that I've read lots of articles about it across multiple streams of and platforms around how many 6 agains is Ashley Klein going to call, and is it going to favour some team or one of the teams? Like, I just think that's a problem. I really, really don't like that. That's a story in the lead up to the grand final, but that's a story, and we've got to talk about that because that's really important.
Yeah, no, I agree. And as I said, I just hope he doesn't affect the game too much, because I want these two teams to bash the crap out of each other, basically. And the best team stands up on top at the end of it and says, we deserved it. So,
yeah, awesome. Next one. I got my next question is, this is a saying that we've been saying all these finals, and I think it's been really key, and it's really shown over these finals in pretty much every game. I reckon there was probably only the one game, which I reckon was the Cowboys Knights game, that this probably didn't affect because it was so free flowing, and the Ponga effect in that game sort of created it. But we've continued to keep saying that forwards win finals and then backs determined by how much. Is that not, the literal overarching factor for this game?
It is. And the big point of this is no Nelson Asafa-Solomona for the Storm, because that is a huge weapon at the Storm's disposal they don't have. There is no denying that. And now what is happening is you've got Tui Kamakamika and Josh King, who I thought was enormous on the weekend and has been pretty much the year and the last couple of years for the Storm. He's such an underrated player, Josh King, and the work he gets through. And I think everyone was talking about Asafa-Solomona versus Jared Waerea-Hargreaves, but I noticed Josh King came out a number of times to really be the first point of contact for Jared on the weekend. And I thought it was a really good statement, because no one speaks about him, and he was sort of the enforcer in a way. And I've never thought about him as that sort of figure. But Tui, on the other hand, that's a lot of pressure now on his shoulders, because they're coming up against the pack that the two Bruce brothers that have done it before, done it time and time again. And this is their last ride. This is their last ride together. Fisher Harris obviously off to the Warriors next year, and they'll be making sure they leave an indent in this game. I have no doubt about it. And they'll know how crucial it is to get off to a good start. They want to set the platform up early. You can probably we'll talk about obviously Cleary at some point, but you never know when that shot will go, and the forwards probably know. The sooner we can get on the front foot and protect him, the better. So I have no doubt in my mind they'll be off the back fence from the kickoff. They'll be putting everything they can into it and testing their bodies to see how far they can go. And then we haven't even spoken about the edges yet. And obviously the Storm have two really good edges. Bloor has surprised a lot this year with how he has come on naturally in his game. I thought he was slow early on, and people were starting to question what was happening. But then obviously the Bellamy effect took hold of him. And in a way, he became an established edge player for the Storm. That spot's his now for as long as he wants it, putting in the work. And Katoa's been a freak. Not even mentioning Liero, who's been huge for the Storm going into that middle, which has been very underrated this year. Not many people have spoken about Trent Liero and that move into the middle, and it's really suited him. Then you talk about the Penrith side, and they've got like Liam Martin on the edge, who is just an absolute nutcase. And I don't want to be in his way. I know what he's like to be. He's not the biggest player on the field, not by any stretch of the imagination, but his heart is probably the biggest heart on the field, and he will just continue to go. He's a scary, scary player, and we know how good and how key Isaiah Yeo is to the Penrith Panthers attack. He's just an absolute beast. He gets and sets the tempo for their attack. He's crucial. Queensland in the past have been able to nullify his role. I'll be interested to see if Harry Grant and Cam Munster can get the Storm to do exactly the same thing and take into effect they've won both games this year, the Storm against Penrith. So I think in the back of their minds, those two players especially know what to do. It's up to the rest of those 11 players on the field to follow their lead and actually get to Isaiah Yeo and control that pace that Isaiah Yeo and the Panthers want to play at.
Yeah, you've stolen all my points. So
moving on.
Moving on. No, yeah, look, I hope I don't annoy people by saying some of the same things, but I've got the same sort of points. Like I'll start with Penrith, JFH and Leota. Like last week we talked about them being the Bash brothers, the Bruise brothers, as you just said before. Scary men, both of them. I said JFH was probably I'd hate to see him in a dark alley way more than I'd hate to see bloody we are Hargraves. He's a scary man. And the thing that scares me about the two of them is that they play with no fear and no care, and they play with black blood running through their veins. So literally everything that they do for the rest of the boys, and they do for the jersey that they've got, right? So, and that's just fearful. And they're amazing. Like they're just such hard running boys that just do what they've got to do, and they get the meters. They just get every single extra meter they can. Post contact meters and things is so important with them. They're just no nonsense, off they go. But then they also back it up with some big tackles, and they're happy defenders. You talk about when they get a break, you're then getting Lindsay Smith and Liam Henry to come through, and they're no scrubs. Like they're good players. You then, as you said, Liam Martin, like he's not a big fella, but he's just so pale, and I reckon it's the glare that comes off his skin that scares the crap out of people, because he's just a monster, isn't he? But he's so smart, and he's so good with the ball in his hand, and he's just so strong, and he doesn't make mistakes. And a lot of the big boys like that play like him, they can own one or two mistakes a game. Martin doesn't do that. Then you can sort of add that fifth wing of the Garner play, and he's a beast. And then, like you said, Isaiah Yeo, and he's the best lock in the competition. And he is the one that sets them all up. And you're right. Like, how do the Storm stop that? And I think it's with Isaiah Yeo, it's forcing him to defend, and he loves to defend, but I think you've got to make him defend repeat sets, which then limits his attacking power. So that's what the Storm have got to do, is continue the repeat sets against him to force him to continue to defend. If you allow him to go and have a couple of runs, then make one or two tackles, then go and have a couple of runs again, and not force them to continue to defend, that's when Penrith get on the front foot, and that's when Yeo starts eating and licking his lips going, let's go. And then Cleary sits in behind him and goes, let's set the rest of the boys up. And that's what the Storm have got to stop with him. And then if you look at the other side, like you said, Nas is a big loss. And Tui's Tui's got to step in for that. But I actually think Tui's pretty similar to Nas. He doesn't have the imposing nature that Nas has, but I think that's more because Nas has got the rap sheet. Nas has got the I guess the best is the reputation. Tui does what Nas does pretty much. You don't see it. I love the call on Josh King. He is incredibly underrated. And he's just a monster. And he's also one that just bleeds purple. Like literally, he just bleeds purple and does every bit of dirty work. I think the key between these two packs is you've got Smith and Henry coming off the bench, and you've got Welsh and Valepu, who's coming back for his 7th game this year. I think it'll be whoever wins that battle for that 30, 40 minutes of the game. That'll be the key. I really think that's a really important battle. And then, to quickly just finish off with my rubbish, but you've got, I think you're right, Blore, Katoa and Liero is the best back row in the competition. And that's not me being a Storm. Like I'm a bit biased, but I actually think they're the best back row in the competition. Name me a better one. But they just play their assignment. They just do what Bellyache wants them to do. And they just do it. And they're always in the right place, right? And how often does Katoa gets a try? It feels like Katoa gets a try every single game. It feels like when Munster's on the ground, Blore gets a try every single game. They're just literally in that right spot at the right moment for the play for those two. And I think that's the real big thing about what that pack does for the Storm is that they're just so tight knit. They know they're able to read and play. It's going to be a fun battle, and I think this game's going to be won through those packs.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You talk about the pack. Obviously, need to be led around the field as well. So I want to ask you about the halves, and it's some entertaining halves to say the least, and it's also the two halves combination, which are probably the scariest in the comp.
The battle of the halves, isn't it? You've got you've got the best player by skill in the competition, and you've got the best player of 2024, who's pretty unlucky to not be called the best player in the competition by skill. And it's only because we've got a future immortal playing against him, I reckon. How good's that going to be? And then you're sitting behind those two and watching what they're doing, and then you've got Luai, and you got Munster. Like, are they not the best half combinations probably in the last decade? It's an open and outrageous call, but I'd love to argue that because I think that'd be a fun argument. Happy to lose it, but I think that'd be a fun argument. You'd have to have, so there'd be some big statistics and some things that would be thrown out to combat that. Both halves, particularly Cleary and Hughes, are very similar but very different. But they both are masters of setting up their team. More so Cleary, like watching Cleary, particularly I love when they do the pan from the behind the goal line, not so much on the sideline. Watching Cleary literally sit there and yell at his boys and say, you go here, and it's like to the inch, right? It's to the centimeter. He makes it centimeter perfect. It's so good to see. Now Hughes is like that, but he's also fun to be able to say, he's also able to sit back. And he will settle when he knows that Pappenhauser's on fire or Grant's on fire or Munster's on fire. And that's what Cleary doesn't have at his disposal. So that's why Cleary does what he does, but he's just so bloody good at it. But, the organisation, the kicking for field position is going to be a really big talking point in this game, I think. And that's going to be off the back of how the halves set the teams up and what the forward pack does, and then what Cleary and Hughes do in terms of can they bomb that and put him in the corners. Cleary is definitely going to do that. Hughes doesn't do it as much. Hughes just wants to bomb it, but Hughes has got some massive weapons on his wings that he doesn't have to do those sort of corner kicks so often. So Hughes is more about attacking kicks, whereas Cleary's not so much attacking kicks. Cleary kicks for meters and kicks for field dominance. I'm really keen to just see how that goes. But, the point of, like I said before, about how much Hughes likes to settle, like he's okay with that. He's just won a Dally M this year, being the man. But how often did he just sit back for 30 minutes in a game and just be like, "Yep, here you go, Munster, you do that." And we just don't see Hughes for a while, and then Hughes pops up in the last 20 minutes and gets 2 tries. It's incredible to watch him and his ability to be able to read the play and see what's going on and go, all right, I can sit back here. I know where to go. But then it's so fun to be able to watch the replays of Hughes. Like if you watch him against what happened on the Roosters on the weekend with every one of his attacking tries that he got, or every one of his tries he got, watch the replay of how he set that up and where he positioned himself. Like it's this future sense that he's got that I just think sick. I don't think Cleary has that. Cleary sets everything up with a plan. Hughes just reads it and goes, okay, this is what I think is going to happen, so this is what I'm going to do. That's going to be a matchup. That's a delicious mashup. I like that word.
It's mouth watering. It really is. It's one of those matchups that you want to go and make sure you sit and watch the game and focus on both of those combinations, because at the end of 80 minutes, whoever wins this battle will win the football game. And there's no doubt in my mind. And I know we always say the forwards in matches, etc., but this matchup and how good both sets of these players are, I feel like whoever wins this battle wins the contest. And in a way, I've slightly got Penrith ahead just because of the fact that Nathan Cleary's done it on the biggest stage of this game now 3 years in a row. He has been sensational. And that performance last year, that last 20, 25 minutes that he put on is the most dominant period of football I've seen probably since Thurston and Joey have put on it at different points of their games. And that's how highly he's been sought at the moment and looked at. His shoulder's not right. It is very clear he's not 100%. But we all know, and how tough he is, it won't matter. He will get a job done. I have no doubt about that. I'm not going to question his input in this game because I'm just going to assume it's just going to be right up there once again at that big stage. Luai is a bit of the underrated player in this foursome sort of battle here, because let's not forget, he has almost, in a way, carried this team with Cleary out. And he was sort of doubted a lot by Ivan Cleary in the offseason at the start of the year, where he said he couldn't lead a team around. He wasn't ready. Damn right he's ready. And I think he has matured a lot as a player this year. I was never a Luai fan. He put me off a lot last year with the way he was carrying on around the Origin time and just on the field. But this year, I think he's really, since that signing with the Tigers, it's like he's spoken to a few people and decided to really take his football a lot more seriously than I guess he was, and his life a lot more seriously. And that shows. And he hasn't diminished as a player. He's actually, for mine, gotten stronger. And the fact he's now that player makes me feel like even if Cleary goes down, as much as it'll be a huge blow, I've got more confidence in Luai than I've ever have for him to be able to step up and get a job done. I think his State of Origin series was sensational. I think he was up there with one of the best players for the Blues for that whole series when you look at it. I'm keen to see what he can do on that big stage. Then you talk about the Storm. Hughes has been sensational all year. The only question mark I have is, can he do it on the biggest stage that the game has, which is the NRL Grand Final? We don't know that yet. We haven't seen him be able to get that showpiece done after having that Dally M year, and now all eyes are literally on him. Like, there'll be every single defender on him. Penrith will have some, I guess, plans of attack to get to him. But he has shown this year he's an absolutely classy player. He's become an elite half in this competition. I'm very keen to see how he lights this up. And then Munster, how has he become basically not spoken about? He's just lying, and I feel like waiting. He's like a crocodile in the swamp, waiting for the prey to walk by, and as soon as it's enough, he's going to grab him. Because has everyone forgotten what Cam Munster is like on the biggest stage and how many big games in his career so far he has owned? He was very good on the weekend. He was built into that game perfectly. He got better as the game went, and it was a scary sign, in my opinion. And I said it last week for opposition teams to see, because a confident Cameron Munster is a player you do not want to verse, because he can single-handedly win a football game, and I don't care who it's against. He's that good when he's on. So it is so close, this battle. I'm so keen to see where it goes and how it goes. I'll just say whoever wins this battle, their team will win the contest.
Yeah, it's a good call. Like the forward packs, I think, are so evenly matched that the forward pack that doesn't give in too much will be the one that allows the halves to win them the game, and that's what's going to happen here. So, and you're right. The difference between the two packs, though, between the two halves, is that Munster and Hughes are so attacking. Luai and Cleary, Luai more attacking, but Cleary's not a super attacker. He attacks in different ways. Hughes and Munster run like Hughes is, in my opinion, and as I've seen lots of people, the best running halfback I've ever seen. That's my opinion. And he just loves to run, but he's now got this knack of, like, he's a beautiful passer and he can put the ball in a dime. Now Munster is such a broken play master. Like, he just loves it when everyone kind of stops and he palms you off, or he tries to find a line and then he does his silly 180 turn, and like he just loves that and he thrives off that. So, but then when he has to settle back and set everything up, he's so good at doing that. And you touched on it so well, is that, we have slept on Munster. Really, we've slept on him. Like, he was a huge against the Roosters. He was enormous against the Sharks the week before that. And then remember that he played against the Cowboys in that round 26 game that we rested 11 of 13. He played in that last game, and he played 80 minutes in both of those games, in games that didn't mean anything. Or I don't think he played full 80 minutes in that last game, but he played most of it. Like, it's incredible how we are sitting here talking about Munster as an underdog. Like, the Mad Dog is not an underdog. He's a freak. And as you said, he has won games by himself. He's won grand finals, and he's sure as hell won Origin games by himself too, and carried that Queensland team at points in time to win it. He can do it. He's there, ready to go. I think he'd be chomping at the bit. That's, for me, it's an early disclaimer that he's my man of the match. But because I think this is just him. He's been peaking for this, and that the whole club has set him up for this game.
It's funny because we've spoken about the halves. We open that up and look at the spine, the 1, 6, 7, and 9, and the battle is just as good. and the cool thing I like about the spine is both sets of them have their own identities and have their own unique roles that they play in both of their styles of attack and football, which, as you've rightly said, is pretty identical when you actually peel things back and look at things. Like the hookers, you've got Harry Grant, who is obviously the best hooker in the game. And on his day, it's probably by a country mile, if we're being brutally honest here. And the thing is, then you go, oh, well, he clearly beats. Sorry, I got a mental blank on the Penrith hooker. Kenny, being a huge night on the podcast. So, but he obviously beats Kenny. But then you go, hang on though, Kenny plays his role to perfection. He's a tackle machine, and he just gets the ball to the halves and to Isaiah Yeo. That's all he has to do. He doesn't need the attacking side of things to his game, because that's not how Penrith play. And it suits them perfectly. They win comps. It works perfectly. Then you look at the fullbacks and you go, Edwards would shit all over Pappy at the moment, but then you go, hang on, look at Pappy's game on the weekend. He was potentially, if it wasn't for Hughes, the best player on the field. And that was some absolute stars on that field on the weekend. And he got back to Pappy of old. It was the first time I sat back and I thought, and I forgot about his injuries. I thought this was 100% Pappy, and it was so, so good to see. And he is an attacking weapon. He just pops up. Edwards, on the other hand, he's been consistent all year. He's probably going to be, and rightly so, the Australian fullback, depending on his health. And he's done it before, again, on the big stage. He's been the fullback now for all of these games that Penrith have won. The battles just don't stop. That's all over the park, man. Like, it's so, as a league lover, people this week have said they're not, they couldn't care less about it. But when you sit back, I don't know how people can't get excited about this grand final, because there is battles everywhere.
Oh, yeah. The people that sit there and talk about it being underwhelming and that the cap is a problem and blah, 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 right? It just shows that naivety. To me, it just shows naivety. These are two teams that consistently keep doing this over and over and over again. And what teams and what you fans need to sit there and do is go, and look, I'm blessed. I go for the Storm, so I'm able to say this. But what teams need to sit down and do is go, what are they doing, and do better. Like, because how can two clubs dominate like this? It shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. Which means that they literally do everything right and others are not. So, and they don't do it they don't do anything spectacular, and their game plans aren't anything that's not hard to analyze. Like, I'm not the most NRL educated person on the planet, and I can clearly see what the Storm and Penrith do game in, game out, and I know bloody well what they're going to do on the weekend. Like, and that's what's going to happen. But to go back to the original point of the spines, like, Pappenhausen's been working up to this. Again, like we talked about Munster, not so much Pappenhausen, because he did get that injury and then came back. So he got that injury against the Cowboys and missed that last game, then came back for the first final. Very happy that he won the first game and then had that bye and he got that extra rest. But he's been sort of working up to this. He played well against the Sharks. He had a really good first half against the Sharks as well in that first game. And then the game was over and done with, basically. And not really, but the scoreboard was close. But the game was basically over and done with in the second half by play of Munster, Hughes, and Grant. Grant was really good that second half too. So Pappenhausen was able to take a step back. Last week, he was the best player on the field in the first half again. In the second half, he was still pretty good, but he was, to me, the best player in the first half and was able to sit back and just go, okay, now, and then Hughes just went off his rock, and then Munster had the last 25 minutes on a rope. Like, so, again, but the point I'm trying to make is that the thing with Grant and the thing with Pappenhausen, the thing with Munster and the thing with Hughes is that they're so in sync somehow, because we know that they haven't played so much and as much football as they should have as a spine, yet they're so in sync and so selfless to be able to go, all right, if Pappy's on here, let's fire it. We'll just keep feeding it. Like, let's get the ball here and then make sure Pappen's ready to run for that offload or that quick play of the ball. If Hughes is going, everyone takes a step back. If Munster's going, we take a step back. If Grant's sitting there saying it's time for a quick play of the balls, I'm going to pick it up and go, they do it. It's just so fun to watch. And I wouldn't say Pappenhausen's the Pappenhausen of old. But I certainly got really encouraged that he's pretty bloody close last week. And Dylan Edwards, right? We all love him. We love him because he's just, everyone respects a dude who's so nice, just goes about his business. I would love to know if he's got a rap sheet at all. Does he have any suspensions or anything? Like, I couldn't see it because he's just such a beautiful man.
He works his ass off as well.
Oh, and you're right. And he's just such a hard-working, good man. And the key, but the thing with and he plays, and he's that perfect position for that, for the Penrith, is that he gets 250 meters just by taking the mark and running, getting those meters, setting you up again, getting that 20 off the kick, easy over and over and over again. That he sets up your team, and then that's how he gets best on field, because you look at it and you go, oh fuck, he's just got 280 meters. What? And then you sit there looking at that going, oh yeah, that's Dylan Edwards. How do you stop that? The key to stopping Dylan Edwards doing what he's doing is making sure that they have to defend. Like, you have to play the Penrith game and make Penrith play the way they want you to play. Make him defend and keep the ball out of his hands as much as possible, so he doesn't give them a really good set to start off with. and making sure he's got field position. If he's playing from the goal line, that 10, 15 meters he gets off the kick is not as important. But if you kick it to the 40 or halfway, that 10 to 15 is now putting them in an attacking position, and you're in trouble big time. And that's when Everest thrives. And in terms of Kenny, I really like Kenny, and he's so underrated. But, you look at it, and that's all Kenny needs to do. Like, he really just has to, he just literally needs to be one that does not make a mistake. Pick up the ball, go get to the play of the ball, pick it up, make the pass. That's all he's got to do. Literally. And he's just perfect at it. But he's perfect at being able to decide which way to go first. And that's the key that sets up Cleary and Yo for that. It seems like every time he picks it up, he just knows it's the perfect time. I'm going to go left here, and off it goes. It just looks so attacking, but it's not. Like, he's an incredible player. And Grant's a completely different beast. He's a different fella. It's just going to be, it's so funny to compare the spines, the four players. You've got Storm, who are like a blend of both, but so much more attacking than Penrith, that are just a system.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I want to make one final point before we go into some of our predictions. I don't want to bore people too. I know everyone's heard all the grand final stuff all week, so I appreciate everyone that stays with us throughout the whole podcast. But I think I'm going to make a big call here. I think this is the moment, and everyone spoke about how big of a loss this guy was at the start of the year. This is the moment in the game where they actually feel the impact of it, and that's Penrith Panthers with Stephen Crichton. He has been so crucial, in my opinion, to all their grand final wins. Obviously the tries. The tries are all there for everyone to see, and we know how much he performs on the big stage. We know his defensive capabilities and how good he is at holding players up and preventing him from getting to the line. He's so good there. He has also helped a lot of times in terms of restarts, building and applying pressure whenever his halves are getting shut down. It's an easy pass out the back to Crichton, who, because he's so skillful, he can just put a little grubber in the in goal, build some pressure, and away they go. I think this is the game that they really feel the impact of having no Stephen Crichton this year. They've been able to get by without him all season. Not in a grand final, though. Grand final is his bread and butter. It's what he was so good at. The bigger the game at the moment, the bigger and the better Stephen Crichton gets. And I think he is a huge, huge loss to the Penrith Panthers as they line up for this one.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's even more a bigger loss when you look at the other side and how good Howarth's been playing, and how they stop Howarth, and how they can attack Howarth, because Howarth has shorn up the Storm's defense enormously. He's kind of playing that like Stephen Crichton type role, but he's not on the same playing field, but he's sort of doing that for the Storm, and that's shored up that edge for the Storm, which is where Crichton would have been fighting for. So I think that's where it's really telling. The Alamotti Tungo, like Tungo's good. I don't think Tungo's great, but Tungo's good. And Alamotti, well, he's sort of, I think again, he's a middle of the pack, but then you're up against Howarth and Meaney, and I could tell you where I would much rather have out of those four for Crichton. Like I'd much rather have Crichton 100%, like out of any of them. So, and he just won winger or center of the year in the NRL awards, and you could just see the impact that he's had on the Bulldogs. Like, that's how bloody good he is. And the thing is, the thing with Crichton is that it's not about stats. He doesn't get huge stats. He doesn't get lots of meters. He's not a big try getter. But he's just so freaking good.
Yeah. He's a moment. He's a moments player. That's the thing. He actually just, any moment, he just seems to ice. He just ices any moment. I think it's a huge talking point that hasn't been raised yet, surprisingly, but I just think it's a huge loss that they'll really feel the impact of on the weekend.
I'd love to see the odds on him making a mistake. I reckon they'd be really, really high, because he just doesn't make mistakes, eh? Like, it's I would put money on Stephen Crichton making a mistake every game, I reckon I'd win a lot. He just doesn't.
100%.
He doesn't make a mistake. Like, he just makes no errors.
Yeah. Going into our predictions for this one, we're going to go over our winner, our goal scoreline as well. We'll get it done. I don't normally do the scorelines, but we will for the big game. And then first try scorer and our Clive Churchill medalist. I will let the Storm man go first.
Yeah, I'm a Storm fan, so I'm naturally going to go Storm. But I truly actually think if I can try and take the hat off, I still think Storm are the better team this year. So Storm scoreline. I actually haven't thought of this one. Scoreline. I'm going to go. I really would like it 30-0. Then I don't have to worry about it. My fingernails will stay on my hand, but that's not going to happen. I'm going to go 24-20 Storm win. I still think with the defensive prowess of both of these teams, it's still going to there's still going to be a few tries. There's still tries in this game. There's still enough attacking power and position in that there's still going to be a few tries. 24-20. First try, did you say? First try I'm going to give to Katoa, who's also my bet for anytime try scorer. An easy one for that, in my opinion. And man of the match, as I alluded to earlier, is the Mad Dog Munster. I think he's just peaking. This is what he froths at the mouth for, and I reckon he's been sitting there like a bulldog all weekend, just with bubbles and shit coming out of his mouth, ready to go. Like he's a mad dog and he's ready.
100%. I've actually got the Storm winning as well. I've got the Storm winning a very, very tight one. I've predicted this to go into Golden Point. I think the Storm win at 17 points to 16.
Please
my
don't
first try scorer is Brian Toe, and my Clive Churchill is the man that kicks the field goal to win it for the Storm. Capping off a huge year for him, Jerome Hughes. I think he does the double this week. He gets the Dally M, obviously, on Wednesday night, and now he has got the Clive Churchill. That is it. That is our grand final preview show and our last preview show of the year, basically. So it came in for the final series. Hope you all have enjoyed it. But enjoy this grand final. It is one for the ages. I truly do believe that. As we've discussed, the battles are all over the park, and we haven't even touched on the coaching battle. Like, there's just the battles are just ridiculous. And I just think this is going to be one of those all-time grand finals that you need to be there and watching, and edge of your seat stuff, even for the non-fans of either team. I think there'll be some huge moments in this game that it'll just be great to view. Thank you, Trav. Thanks for being part of the episode, and good luck to obviously your team, but good luck to yourself as well. Obviously, you're a panel member, and it's a huge game. I know grand final week is huge as a fan, and nerve-wracking as well, but I hope you get through it, and I hope your team gets up for your sake.
Yeah, I hope so too, eh? I need one. The Swans got flogged last week, so I was thinking that we were having a good year in my household, but last week sort of shattered that. Thanks, mate. Hey, just on a quick note, thanks, Joel, for the opportunities, and thanks for everything there. And to all the listeners, I don't know if we're going to get many for this, and I hope we do, but I think it's good quality, and what we've done over the finals with that's been good. But I've been lucky enough to get a few sort of messages and things, and people have been able to find me on and through Facebook and that's okay. Just wanted to give a shout out to the positive messages I've been getting, and thanks for having me, and thanks for welcoming me. And I'd look forward to seeing the Storm win this weekend, hopefully, and the future of the League of Inches podcast and group that we're in and our community.
Well said, mate. I can't say anything else apart from thank you, and you've been a great addition to the team. So good luck to both sets of fans on the weekend. Penrith obviously going for that four-peat and to become probably the best side we've ever seen in our lifetime, and obviously the NRL era. And good luck to the Storm, trying to get it done and reestablish themselves as that top team of the competition. Enjoy the grand final. We sure will.